follow the
Okay.
the procedure as yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will play the anthem.
National anthem.
Right, my national anthem and your national anthem. Then after that,
Right.
your time, and then we will close.
Okay,
sir. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you,
sir.
Miss Jenny, for coming and for a beautiful moment right now. Let's start, students, para mahasiswa. Mari kita mulai saja acaranya. Kuliah tamu pada pagi hari ini. Okay, students, let's start by praying. Since I'm Muslim, so I will start using the Muslim Islamic version. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki yaumiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Khaliqu billahi wa bihi Okay, hopefully today we will get a lot of benefit from this lecturing, and may the Almighty bless us all. Okay, the next we will listen to the national anthem first from the Indonesia Raya. Silakan Mbak Diana.
Oh
Okay, so we have listened to our national anthems from Indonesia and from Philippines. And now comes to the next session, that is a lecture, proper lecture from Mrs. Jenny. Teman-teman mahasiswa, mohon bisa menyimak. Nanti sekiranya ada pertanyaan bisa disampaikan lewat teks, ya, melalui chat room, chat balloon itu ya. Atau kalau ingin disampaikan secara langsung juga bisa nanti pada sesi setelah Miss Jenny memberikan perkuliahan. Oke, Miss Jenny.
Yes, sir. So I think, sir, I understand what you said, that they can use their chat box whenever they have questions, right? So they could actually use the chat box if we want this exchange to be interactive. So I want their participation, sir, so if possible. But my question is, may I ask, are these students majoring in English? Are they majoring in English, sir?
No, they are from elementary school teaching faculty.
Okay, so that means, sir, they are all faculty members.
They're not majoring in English, and every day they use bahasa instead of English.
Yes, sir. But they are teachers. They are teachers, or they are future teachers.
Yes, future teachers. Candidate for
future teachers. Okay, sir. Yes, yeah. Sir. Okay, so I will start my lecture now, and I hope I can share today. So let me share now my screen. So let's talk about developing teaching materials using folklore.
Time is yours, Ms. Jenny.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Can you see my lecture, my presentation, sir? Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Still blank.
Okay. Just wait, sir. I think I have a technical problem because my computer is not responding.
Take your time.
Okay. So, can you see it now, sir? Not yet.
Not yet. Still blank, yeah?
Can you see the screen, sir? Not yet.
No. There's common error, you know. I mean,
may I stop?
Right. Now it show up.
So you have seen already the screen, sir?
Yeah.
A while ago. A while ago, have you seen it, sir?
Still blank. Right.
Now, sir.
Yes.
Is it,
yes. Okay.
You can see the screen now, sir?
Yes.
Okay, sir. So, but it's not in its proper form, I think. Okay, so there's a message here that you can already see my screen. Am I still audible, sir?
Still, yeah.
Can you still hear me?
Right, clear enough, Miss Jenny. Clear enough.
I think I have a problem. Let me stop sharing, sir. Wait lang. Wait. Okay. Can you see it now, sir?
Yes.
Why is it that it's not proper in my... Wait, sir, I will ask for a technical assistance from my co-teacher.
Just all right. Take your time. It's okay. Yes.
JM. JM.
Ya, masalah umum ya. Kalau pakai jaringan internet seperti ini sudah hal yang
kita ng buo. Ito ako. Wala yung kasi, nag-reread pa lang. Nag-share nga ako. Okay lang ba? Hindi. What I mean is, hindi ko siya makita. So, paano ko siya ililipat? Hindi ko makita yung screen ko.
I-minimize mo.
So, no. Kasi pagka in-stop share ko, here, andito siya. So, dapat, pag in-screen share ko siya, excuse me, I have a technical problem. Wait for a while, okay? I'm so sorry.
yeah. No problem. Take your time. Take your time. Teman-teman mahasiswa mohon sabar ya. Ada kesalahan teknis. Oh ya, sambil menunggu Mam Jenny, teman-teman mahasiswa silakan untuk mengklik itu ya, link yang sudah disampaikan oleh Mr. Mark untuk mengisi daftar hadir. Silakan.
Sir, can you see my screen now?
Unfortunately, still blank, Miss Jenny.
Maybe it's still loading. Yeah. How about now, sir?
Now, right? Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry, sure.
How about if I will change it? Then you can see the changes now. Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Still the same. Developing teaching material based.
So it's loading, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Probably the
So
connection.
sorry, sir, for the delay.
No problem.
I'm so sorry for the delay.
It's okay. Just come
So,
Miss Jenny.
ano ko naman na siya, nabuo naman na siya. Kaya lang, ang problem is, hindi siya lumilipat. Ayun, naglo-loading, no? Naglo-loading siya. Okay. Ayaw siya. How about dito? Oo, ayan, yung yeah. Teka, hindi, naglo-loading pa kasi siya. Siguro dumaan na siya lahat. Ano? Oo. Teka, wait, ayan, yeah. Okay. So it's working now. So it's good afternoon. Salamat.
Bukan selamat petang, probably selamat pagi ya, atau selamat siang.
Am I accurate? Am I accurate? Okay, so thanks God that it's working now.
Yeah.
So may I go back? So maybe the internet is somewhat loading, still loading. You know, this is the problem these days, right? So my topic today actually is developing teaching material based on folklore. So I am Jennifer Flores from the Philippines, and I hope I can share something today for you in developing teaching materials, wherein our focus is folklore. So again, according to Sir, salamat petang, it's good afternoon already. Okay, so our objectives for today is that we're going to define materials and materials development, cite examples of learning materials that can be used in the classroom. So I guess you are going to teach elementary students later. So my example later will be on grade 7, but anyway, you can use this in any class. Okay, and the third one is to discuss materials and materials development in the language classroom. So you have here a chat. Let me see the content of the chat. Anyway, this is the attendance, I think. Okay, so we have here a picture. Okay, so what do you see in the picture? If you like to participate, you can actually go to our chat box and then answer. So this is a picture of, yes, I'm going to answer this now because there's a delay already. So this is a picture of a carpenter. And on my left side of the screen, we have a picture of his tools. So if I make an analogy of a carpenter and a teacher, the carpenter makes use of carpentry tools in order to build whatever he wants to build. Like, for example, if he wants to build a house. So for a teacher, she also has tools or teaching materials that she can utilize so that she could teach English to her learners. So again, it's still loading again. So before that, let us see first the founder and president of the Materials Development Association. So Dr. Brian Tomlinson. So I based my lecture on his book, Materials Development in Language Teaching. So he is actually the pioneer in the materials development all over the world. So let's define what are materials. So according to Dr. Tomlinson, this is everything the language teacher is using to assist her learners in the learning. So she could utilize this in an online and in an offline teaching. Another, materials can be in the form of linguistic, auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So that means even body language. And they can be presented through print or live performance, play, CD-ROM, DB-ROM, or computer. So yesterday, actually, Ma'am Rani Setyawati discussed about using Doraton and Animaker. So these are computer-aided applications. So these are materials. So materials can be informative. That means you inform the learner about the target language. So in this case, our target language is the English language. And then instructional, so you can guide the learner in practicing the English language. And materials should be also experiential in a sense that it provides the learner with experience of the language used. So that means they would be able to use English. And eliciting, that means to encourage the learner to use the English language. And of course, it should be exploratory in a sense that it would help the learner to make discoveries about the language. So another meaning from Tomlinson is anything which can be used to facilitate the learning of the language, including course books, videos, graded readers, flashcards, games, websites, and mobile phone interaction. So I think you have already met Mentimeter, or you are using quizzes in your evaluation. So another meaning here is they are materials which could play a central role in language teaching. So this is according to Gordon and Graves. So as language teachers, we have to utilize materials in teaching because students are unique. So they are different with different learning styles. And as teachers, we have to make our lessons engaging. Thus, we have to be creative, we have to be resourceful to be able to know what materials our students will need. So in short, they are the heart of the teaching learning process according to Diamante, Fauci, and Inayati. So if we will choose our materials selectively and use them effectively, it will improve the teaching learning process. That's why materials are very important. So that means they should not just be randomly selected. We have to be selective as teachers. We don't take materials for granted. We have to utilize them and let them serve their purpose. So for teachers, actually preparing materials is very tedious, but it is our responsibility as teachers. Now, let me have the two classifications of materials. So we have here actually created materials and authentic materials. So what are created materials? So created materials are the course books, the audio materials, and the video materials, while authentic materials cover authentic texts like folklore. So they are myths, legends, and folk tales, which are actually great sources of values. You could also have movie, film, radio broadcasting, television programs, graphs, maps, tables, and charts. Now, we know already the meaning of materials. So how about materials development? So according to Tomlinson again, materials development, so is the study and practice of developing materials for the teaching of language. So our target language is English. So it includes the principles and processes of designing, implementing, and evaluating materials. Thus, we say that it is a field of study and undertaking. So we have to take into consideration the principles and the procedures of implementation, the design, the evaluation of the language teaching materials. So Tomlinson focuses on the 6 principles of materials development. Number 1 is we are making materials so that we can expose our learners to language in authentic use. So that means the language can be used in real life situation. Principle number 2 is we help learners to pay attention to features of authentic input. Like for example, our base today, which is folklore. So folklore actually is an authentic input. And principle number 3, it provides the learners with opportunities to use the target language, again, English, to achieve communicative purpose. Principle number 4 is to provide opportunities for outcome feedback. That's why we have also evaluation. And principle number 5, to achieve impact in the sense that they arouse and sustain the learner's curiosity and attention. So that means our material should be interesting so that it could stimulate intellectual, wrong spelling, sorry. So intellectual is double L, aesthetic, and emotional involvement, which is principle number 6. Now, there are also factors for materials development. So we have actually learner factors, teacher factors, and contextual factors. So we have to take into consideration the interest, the needs, the motivations, the style preference, the experience, the first language, the literacy, and the purpose for learning the second language for our learners. And there are also teacher factors. So the proficiency, the training, the experience, the background, the teaching style, the competence, the time, the availability of the time. Remember, preparing materials is very tedious. And of course, the contextual factors. So the culture, the condition of the classrooms, the class size. So you will decide later, if you will see later my example. So what will you do? Is it through groupings or individual or dyads or triads? And then resources and facilities, curriculum, contextual purpose for learning. So these are the factors in materials development according to Brown. Now, another, we have the principles of whole in planning and writing material. So there's a need to communicate. So that means there's a task to finish. And there's the need for long-term goals. And so that means the language should be used anytime, anywhere, especially in cross-culture communication. And there's a need for authenticity. Materials should be authentic. That's why our basis today is about folklore. And there should be the need for student-centeredness. So our focus should cater to the needs of our students, to their interests. And another here, we have principles from Peña, Florida. Principle 1, that means it should be clearly linked to the curriculum they serve. So what kind of curriculum do you have? And the materials should be linked to the curriculum. And then again, authenticity of the text and the task. They should be authentic. It should stimulate interaction. And it allow learners to focus on formal aspects of the language. That's why also we have our language focus. And then materials should encourage learners to develop learning skills and skills in learning. And it should encourage learners to apply their developing skills to the world beyond the classroom. So that means it should be applicable. So because of that, we have mentioned about task, we have mentioned about authentic text and task. Let us define what a task is. So according to Littlewood, which was mentioned by Williams and Burden, a task is an activity that learners engage in to further the process of learning the language. So take note of that. We are doing the task, we are creating materials because we have our target language so that we could learn the language. So in our case today, we have to learn the English language. Another, tasks or activities where the target language is used by the learner for a communicative purpose in order to achieve an outcome. So as you can see, our target is English and we have to communicate. The material should be communicative so that we have to develop the target language. Now we have here what we call the classification or the subcategories of task. So we have here what you call communication task. So that means there's a need for the students to use the target language. And enabling tasks, that means it's according to the extent in which the students will involve in communication or in the focus on form. When you say focus on form, we are talking about grammar in short. So that's language focus. So this is the criteria for a task according to Iskehan, which was mentioned by Littlewood. So meaning should be primary, and there is some communication problem to solve. There is some sort of relationship to real world activities. So remember a while ago, I mentioned about materials that they should be authentic, that they should be applied in real world activities. So there should be task completion, and the assessment of the task is in terms of the outcome. That's why we have here the form to meaning continuum. So I'm sharing to you this form because here, when we do our activities, we start actually on the focus on form, which is for the non-communicative learning, then going to the focus on meaning, which is for authentic communication. So we have these different kinds of activities in the continuum, wherein our focus on form is for the non-communicative learning, we are focusing on the structures of the language. That's why we do not call them tasks. We just call them exercises. But if we are using authentic communication and our focus is on meaning, that means it is our authentic communication. So that means we are using the language, the English language, in unpredictable situations, like, for example, role playing or more complex problem solving and discussion. So this is actually what is happening when we are designing our materials. Now, since we are creating materials, another types of materials design is what we call lesson planning. So that's my focus today. So lesson planning. So teachers have to adapt and create materials, but we have to take a look on the components of the language teaching. So students are important, the teacher, again, the materials, which is actually the soul, and then the teaching methods and evaluation. So they are all important. And for the components of the lesson format, that's why I'm talking about lesson plan. So we have starter, the input, which is the folklore, and the general information, the language focus, and the task. Okay, so the starter is the stimulating activity. So this is some form of lead-in or communication, motivation, I should say, that they should be in the form of thought-provoking questions. They could be in the form of paragraph or activities that would set the mood of the learners. And then you have the input, which is what are the things that we are going to tell. So in this case, we are going to use folklore in the form of legend. So we will talk about legend from the Philippines. Okay, and then you have the language focus. After the general information, of course, the general information is the lesson, and then the language focus is the grammar. What is specific lesson in English in terms of language could be tackled, and then of course the task. So what they should do that should be applicable in real life situation. So what is folklore? So since this is our basis now, developing materials using folklore, so let's define what a folklore is. So folklore encompasses the traditional beliefs, the stories, customs, legends, which are transmitted orally from generation to generation. So we use folklore actually because they are great sources of values. Students could learn from this. So common folklore genres, we have fairy tales, legends, myths, tall tales. Tall tales actually are a story with unbelievable elements, and they are related as if they are true and factual. And then you have the fables. So these are examples of folklore. So in the Philippines, actually, we have a book of folk tales, which features 61 folk tales. So it was authored by Mabel Cook Cole, which was published in 1916. So I got one of my lesson here. So since I am sharing about lesson plan, so let me share to you some tips in creating materials following the lesson plan, because lesson plan is one way of creating materials. So this is a lesson designed for grade 7. So here I have the objectives: identify the basic elements of a story, get the meaning of words through context clues, value the importance of hospitality and kindness, write a letter for the things which you are thankful about using adjectives. Hello, my students, are you still here? Wow, sir, we are many. We have 61 participants already. So are you still okay, class? Anyway, you can eat your lunch while we are doing this. So this is a working lunch. So it's fine with me if you are eating your lunch. So next is the subject matter. So what is our subject matter? So we are going to identify the basic elements of the story. So the input is Folklore. The title is The Legend of Mag-asawang Tubig. This is one of our legends in the Philippines. And our language focus is adjectives. So if you can still remember, Rusul mentioned the components of a lesson format. So we have the starter, the input, the general information, the language focus, and the task. So in the pre-reading, we are only dividing our lesson plan in 3 parts. So we have the pre-reading, while reading, and the post-reading. In the pre-reading, we have this routine activity. So we start our class in prayer, greeting, the checking of attendance, classroom management, and then review. And for the start or motivation part, okay, so let us have first the unlocking of difficulties. So I got this from the text so that they can understand the words. So unlocking of difficulties, that means we have to get the meaning of this word so that they can understand the story later. So I have here words like, for example, well off, tattered, hospitably, amazement, grief, and adjoining. And then I have here some choices. Okay, so you could actually use the chat box so that you can get the meaning. What's the meaning of well off? So by using the context clues, by using explanation, definition, comparison and contrast, synonym and antonym, which you can find in the sentences. So you can actually get your students to work into pairs or in groups. So that depends on the management that you're going to use in the class. Remember, for the context, it's depending on the size of the class. So if you have a small class, for example, you have only 30, you could do that in pairs, or you could do that in small group. And they have to discuss the meaning of the words here. So you have here now the motivation and then the lead in. So what do you see in the picture? So I will let the students describe what's in picture number 1. So on my right is picture number 1, and on the lower left is picture number 2. So they will now explain what they see in the picture. So they will describe what do they see in the picture, what is in picture number 1, what is in picture number 2. And then I have a follow-up question that if they see, for example, a beggar, because these are examples of vagrant on the streets, okay? And if they beg you for something, what do you do? Okay, so in that case, I am leading my students to focus on the lesson. Now, in the while reading, so this is now the presentation of the lesson. So this is now the reading of the story. So instead of reading the story as in the plain text, you could actually read this with the pictures side by side, or you could have the option as in video presentation of the story, just like Ma'am Brady had done yesterday. She used Dora Toon and Animaker in presenting the different kinds of folklore yesterday. So this is the story actually. So let me tell you the story of the legend of Mag-asawang Tubig. In the olden days, there was a small town in which a few farmers' families lived. Among them was the couple known as Baimo and Basinta. They were well-liked and respected in that place, for although they were well off, they were humble and generous. One day, Bathala put them to the test. A beggar in tattered clothes came to their house and asked for lodgings. The couple very hospitably welcomed their guest and even joined him for a meal at their table. To the great amazement of the couple, although they had been eating for some time, the food at the table did not decrease. Realizing that their guest was God, the couple knelt before him and prayed, the old man blessed them. In their prayer, the couple asked that they may die at the same time so that neither of them would experience grief and loneliness, which would surely happen if one of them died first. God granted the wish of the couple. They died at the same time and were buried in adjoining graves. God granted the wish of the couple. Then, not long afterwards, a brook sprang from their graves. This later grew and grew until it became a river, which was named Mag-asawang Tubig in memory of the loving couple. And then, since we had gotten the meaning of some words through context clues, we will go now first to the groupings. We will divide the class into groups, then distribute the worksheet. So this is how to develop materials. You make worksheets and then let them answer this by discussing their answers with their group mates. And then later on, you do the presentation per group. So you have to limit the time. Of course, so that depends on how much time will you allot in the discussion and then in the groupings. Of course, they will be using the language now. If you can still remember the continuum that I have shared to you a while ago. So these are actually the activities. So the context clues is on the non-communicative learning or pre-communicative learning wherein they are focusing on the structures and they are practicing the language and they are getting their attention, okay? But they are not communicating so much actually. So that's in groupings also. Now in the presentation, so they are actually presenting to the group, so that is through the structured communication or authentic communication in a sense, because they are using the structured communication or communication language practice in a sense because they have their ready material. Before they talk, they have their cards, cue cards, and then they could actually read their answer or they could look at their cue cards and then they will present. And then now we go to the comprehension questions. So in the comprehension questions, we will discuss now the different questions. So here, I made questions from the text. So we will discuss the content of the story using these questions now. And then in the language focus, I will be discussing adjectives. Remember, a while ago, I discussed that there should be language focus. So in this case, we are using the interface of literature and language, and we will be discussing adjectives. So what I did in the material is I got sentences from the story, The Legend of Mag-asawang Tubig, and then let them put in pairs. You put them in pairs or in groups and let them identify the adjectives in the following sentences. So here they are doing some sort of communication using the English language, just like in the continuum that I have shared to you a while ago. And then in the post-reading, we have here generalization and application, of course. So in the generalization, they will be talking about the content. So that means in the comprehension questions, make as many questions as possible following the Bloom's taxonomy of questioning, wherein you are eliciting the higher order thinking skills of your students. Create questions that would really exhaust the text so that you could arrive at the theme of the story. Okay. And in the language, of course, we are talking about adjectives. So in the application, you could give another folktale, probably a myth, tall tale, fairy tale, fable, or another legend, and let them work in groups. Let them use the same worksheets, or you could devise another worksheet so that they have that in the activity. Like, for example, we have here worksheet number 1. They identify the elements of the story. The purpose actually of application is so that they could master the lesson. Okay? And then we have here worksheet number 2, wherein they will be getting sentences with adjectives from the text you presented, and then they have to get the meaning of the words, the meaning of the adjectives, and they have to use the adjectives that they got from the story in their own sentence. And in the evaluation, so since we want to have authentic task, okay, though they are writing a letter, okay, so that is authentic task, writing a letter. They are writing a letter to God of the things which they are thankful about. And then state the reason why they are thankful about those things. And then they have to use the adjectives. So they have to follow the format of a friendly letter. So remember, you have to use rubric so that it will be easier for you to check the work of the student. So this is actually part of materials development, making rubric. So in this case, you have 15 points if they follow the work, the title, the date, how about the salutation, the closing, do they use adjectives, is it capitalized, so on and so forth. So you can devise your own rubric or you can adapt. So there are many from Google. And then for the assignment or enrichment, in groups of 4, they create a 2-stanza poem or a song as a tribute to God for his blessings. And be able to use adjectives. They have to underline the adjectives used in the poem or the song. And of course, don't forget the rubric. So you can check using this, or you can devise your own. So this is all part of materials development. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you have learned something from me. Terima kasih, salamat. Thank you from Mom Jenny. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Miss Jenny, thank you very much. It's really nice lecture, quite interesting in the materials. Well, I follow some of your explanation. Baik, teman-teman mahasiswa, I think this is the session for question and answer, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If they have questions, sir.
Oke. Teman-teman mahasiswa, silakan kalau ada pertanyaan. Tadi saya kira sudah komplit ya, mulai dari awal ada teori, lalu ada penjelasan prosedurnya dan seterusnya sampai terakhir ada bagaimana mengimplementasikan dan melaksanakan. Oke, silakan teman-teman mahasiswa apabila ada pertanyaan, please students, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat balloon, or if you are confident enough, you can directly address Miss Jenny.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And if they don't have questions, I will be the one to ask them questions.
Nanti kalau nggak tanya, nanti gantian Anda yang ditanya.
So, since I shared the legend of mag-asawang tubig, maybe somebody would like to answer what's the meaning of mag-asawa, because that's a Filipino word. And another is, what's the meaning of tubig, based on my story, which I have read a while ago. That's my question, sir, if they don't have any question for me. Do you know now, class, what's the meaning of mag-asawa? And then tubig. Mag-asawa means couple. Yes, that's right. Thank you, Nicole. So how about tubig? What do you mean by tubig? Water. Thank you. So that means, okay, thank you very much. Any questions, students, please? Or you're hungry? Have you eaten your lunch already? It's already 1 o'clock here in the Philippines.
Oh, still not yet lunch. Yeah, 12, almost 12.
Yes, it's almost 12, sir. Sir, may I request your students, maybe they could actually open their camera for the picture taking.
Oh, please, yes, okay.
May we request Sir Mark to get the screenshot. Sir Mark Andre.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Teman-teman,
Thank
silakan
you.
dibuka kameranya. Akan maukan di screenshot. Mbak Yana, siap juga ya Mbak Yana?
Thank you, sir, for having me today. Actually, I'm the last lecturer.
So, I will take the picture now and a count of 3. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Mohon ya kameranya supaya diaktifkan, supaya gambarnya bagus nanti untuk fotonya.
Thank you to all. So I hope you learned from my sharing. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome, Miss Jen. So it's already done, yeah? The
Yes,
lecture.
sir. Yes, sir. If they don't have questions,
Okay,
that's done already.
Hopefully they understand fully, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Or maybe we can meet again and in a better situation, so they can continue the lecturing. Okay, Miss Jenny.
Yes, sir.
I think this is the final session. Thank you very much for the lecturing and for the beautiful and useful material. So I think we stop as far as this. If God willing, we will meet again in the next session.
Yes, sir.
For better. Thank you, Miss Jenny.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
Welcome.
Yeah. And Mr. Mark, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll close.
Can we leave now, sir?
Oh, please, yes, yeah, your permission to leave.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Hope to see you here in the Philippines. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Permission to leave, everyone. Nice meeting you all.